What's up everybody, TechChucker here, and we've got a review for you of the Storm Collectibles Deluxe Edition Bloody Version Scorpion. Now these Mortal Kombat figures are really cool. I'm so glad that I decided to take the plunge and get Sub-Zero and this Scorpion. But let's not waste any more time, let's go ahead and crack this thing open and take a closer look. Alright, now if you saw my Sub-Zero review, basically the articulation is exactly the same, but his head is on a double ball peg. He can look up that far, he can look down about this far, which is pretty cool, and then there is neck articulation also, which allows him to get down a little bit further. He's got good side to side motion, there's nothing getting in the way of that, of course, and then he's got a really large range of motion when it comes to the tilt. And then you add in the neck articulation, and this is just phenomenal. I just love it. This is great. I love the Storm did an awesome job. In the shoulders, he's got a ball hinge. He can get his arm all the way out, and he can rotate that all the way around in a 360. Nothing getting in the way there. There is also a butterfly joint. It's doesn't go super far, but you can pull it out and you can take a look and see what it actually looks like in here. It's basically just this little piece, and then that allows the joint to move around a little bit but still be covered up so it doesn't look super ugly. And this just kind of pokes back in. There's really only one way that you can get it in, and then that's a ball peg, and you just drop that in and it works pretty well. He can get his arms forward and not crunch, but he can get his arms in about that far. Not a huge amount, but backwards there's a lot more range of motion. I'm pretty happy with that. So there's no issues. I'm really happy. There is an upper bicep swivel that works great. Double jointed elbows, again, no issues with that. Well over 90 degrees, that's awesome. In the wrist, he has a ball hinge, and these work pretty darn good. I have to say that the range of motion is very nice. Moving down into the torso, this is one of the best parts about this figure, is the torso articulation. The crunch forward is great. You can see he can crunch forward quite a bit, and the costume doesn't really get in the way at all, and it kind of conforms, which is nice. And then backwards arch, that works really good. He can get back, and then you can just kind of press this so that gap goes away. You can kind of push it out of the way. Since it's very soft, you're not going to have any issues with that. He's got side to side crunch, not too bad. It's pretty decent. And then the yellow piece, you can just kind of move out of the way. He can rotate side to side at the upper torso. And then he also has waist swivel as well, but I don't really find myself using it all that much, but it is there. So I'm very pleased with all of that articulation. In the hips, he can do a full split. This is awesome. Look at that. Full split. Now, you're not going to be able to do full split with feet flat on the floor, but that is okay in my book. He is able to kick forward pretty much 90 degrees, maybe a hair more. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty darn good. And those little rubber flaps, the front flaps aren't going to get in the way. They're very soft, so no issues there. Kicking backwards is probably the most impressive backwards kick I have seen on a figure. And that is awesome. Look at that. And it covers it up so you don't see any of the ugliness of that joint. That's great. There is an upper thigh swivel. It's pretty limited. It's not going to go very far, but that is a-okay again in my book. It goes a little bit, but nothing to write home about. Double jointed knees, very smooth action, and it looks nice, works great. No upper shin cut, but the ankles, it's a ball and a hinge, and that works backwards great, forwards great. It's great. And then there is, there we go. The ball peg does pop off relatively easy, but not so bad. But he does have ankle rocker. That's a little bit limited, but it's still okay. It does swivel just like a ball would. And then in the toe, there is a hinge. It works good. I'm pretty happy. Overall articulation, everything is there that you would need. I love it. I think it's great. Now the sculpt is basically exactly the same as Sub-Zero. Even the face sculpt is pretty much the same. I didn't see much for differences in the face sculpts. The paint, I mean, there is a slight variation to the blood splatter, but the rest is pretty much the same. But the face sculpt and the paint are very, very nicely done. I really like the paint. This hood is a nice soft rubber, which is great. I love it. Just overall, I think that Storm Collectibles does a great job with the sculpt work. This piece, the shoulder yellow piece, is very soft and pliable. You can kind of pull it down. You can position it to the way that you want it. The chest piece is kind of a softer rubber, which is nice. They sculpted it great. There's lots of nice paint details. You can see these cuff pieces and the top of the hand armor, nicely painted, very well sculpted, lots of blood splatter all over this figure. These flaps are very soft rubber, so they're not going to get in the way of any of your articulation, which is great, but they do still feel firm enough that they're not going to break or anything. The knee pads look great. Obviously, some really nice sculpting. Again, it's the same as Sub-Zero. The feet are the only thing I'm not super impressed with, but the rest of it I am. You can see there's some yellow paint coming through on the back of the hinges, but I'm not going to complain too much. In the neck here, you can see there's an extra piece of rubber. If you pull it too far, it's going to pop out, but the shirt is actually a soft rubber, so you just slide that back in, no issues. I'm just really impressed with all the details that they've put into this, and you can see when you articulate the torso, there is a bit of a gap, but you can kind of finagle that articulation to cover it back up, which is awesome. Let's take a look and see just how tall this figure is. Now, they rate him at a 1/12 scale, around 7 inches, and he is just shy of 7 inches, maybe 6 3/4. Yeah, about 6 3/4, maybe up to 7 inches. So a little bit larger than most of your Marvel Legends, which is fine. I'm not likely to pair him with them, but let's go ahead and throw Deadpool in next to him so that you can get a good comparison shot of the two standing together. So you can see that Scorpion is slightly taller than Deadpool, not by much, but maybe by almost a 1/4 inch. And I do like that Scorpion seems to have a little bit more anatomically correct physique properties, I guess. His torso, his hips, they look a little more human as opposed to Deadpool that is a little more comic looking, which is fine. Okay, so Storm didn't give us a huge number of accessories, but they gave us just enough. We get first the instruction booklet that tells us how to use the different accessories, which is nice. I mentioned this in my Sub-Zero one. It's nice to have some instructions on how to use the different accessories so you don't get it wrong. You just have to make sure you read the instructions. But first up, he comes with an alternate mask, so you can see the one on his face is more of a vented one. This is a cloth, or appears to be sculpted as cloth, and this just pops off. There is a hole where his mouth would be, and I noted in the Sub-Zero one that this is a really creepy look, but you can see the two, they're very different from each other, but very nicely sculpted, very nicely painted, lots of blood. And that just pegs right into his face. Okay, so that took way longer than it should. But when you pop that in, make sure that the hood is on the outside of the mask, and there you have it. I personally prefer the vented version a little bit more than the cloth one. And then he comes with his Fatality skull face, and this is sculpted really nicely, painted very nicely. It just looks great. It has that nice menacing look, which is awesome. I love it. Now, the one thing that's really cool, the jaw is hinged, and that's key for one of the other pieces that comes with this figure, but we'll get to that in just a second. This just pops off. The head pops off pretty easily. And I will note that my skull head is really tight on this ball, and it makes me a little bit nervous to, keep trying to work this thing on. We'll see if it goes on easier this time. No, yeah, it's still really, really tight, so be careful. All right, there we go. So I got that on. It looks awesome. This just, I don't know, it's just a phenomenal look, I think. He also comes with his flame effect, which of course you need to have his flame effect for, you know, his fatality shot. And this is painted and sculpted very nicely. I love it. And it also comes with the flame, you know, effect for on the ground. Obviously, when he's shooting his flame, it's going to hit the ground. It's got to do something. So these pieces go together really nicely. There's actually a little kind of tab hole that you put this in his mouth. So it lines up relatively nicely. You are going to obviously need him to lean over so he can basically prop that up against the ground, and it'll all hold together so that it's coming out of his mouth. That looks awesome. I love it. Next up, he comes with a bunch of different hands. So here are his karate chopping hands. These are really, really cool. I love how soft and pliable the fingers are. You can't go wrong with that. When the fingers are fairly soft, you're not going to break them off. Basically, all of the plastic is very, very soft on these things. He also comes with some a little bit more gripping hands. Again, the fingers very soft, lots of nice paint, lots of blood splatter. And then these hands, I forget what they're called. I'm not even going to try and make up the term because I can't remember. And then he also comes with what looks to be a single hand that'll hold something. For the rest of this review, we're going to keep him in the vented mask, but he also comes with his spear rope deal that he shoots out. This thing is really cool, and it is made so that it can peg onto the wrist and make it look like he's throwing it. But he also has it wrapped up so that he can hold it either after he has thrown it because there's blood on it, or just before, and he's going to do it again. So this hand will hold it. You get one hand for each side, so he can hold it on either side, which is really awesome. I love it. This effect looks really, really cool. But I prefer the one where he is shooting it out. So these hands pop off, and oftentimes mine, the entire hinge joint comes off, but it's a ball peg and it comes off pretty easily. Those forearm pieces just slide around so you can kind of adjust it the way that you want. So grab your hand. You're going to grab one of his karate chop hands, grab the right one, and pop that on. Goes on really easily. There you go. But we need to put his little throwing effect on. So to put the rope effect on, pop the hand onto the hinge, if your hinges come off easily like mine, and the ball peg will go through the little loop, and then you just pop that in. See if I can get this on camera. A little harder when you do it on camera. But basically, you want it to look like it's coming from his wrist. This is awesome. I just love this effect. I think it's probably one of my favorite effects that I have from any of these, from Sub-Zero or Scorpion. I just think it looks great. I think it's an amazing effect. I'm glad that they gave it to us, and I'm also really glad that they gave us the wrapped up rope one as well. And then last but not least, I don't know if you'd count this as an accessory, but the inside sleeve comes with this box art, which has the Mortal Kombat symbol. I just think that it looks really cool. If you wanted to display your figures with that, you could cut it out or frame it or do whatever the heck you're going to do with it. But I think it looks great. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I mean, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? You know, with Scorpion standing in front of it, I think it looks great. Alrighty folks, there you have it. I really like this figure. I think Storm did a great job on this Scorpion figure. I think it's a great likeness of the video game that we all loved growing up with. And honestly, the value is there. I mean, they're not that expensive of figures, and you get all the articulation, the sculpt, the paint, the accessories. I think it's a solid package. I highly recommend you grab these figures if you grew up playing Mortal Kombat or watching the movies. Alrighty folks, let me know in the comments below what you think of these figures. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see you later.